Earth's climate is changing, with the global temperature now rising at a rate unprecedented in the experience of modern human society. While some historical changes in climate have resulted from natural causes and variations, the strength of the trends and the patterns of change have emerged in recent decades indicates that human influence, resulting primarily from increased emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, have now become the dominant factor. The increasingly rapid rate of recent climate change poses new challenges to the resilience of Arctic life. In addition to the impact of climate change, many other stresses brought about by human activities are simultaneously affecting life in the Arctic, including air and water contamination, pollution due to resource extraction, and increasing pressure on land and resources related to the growing human population in the region. The sum of these factors threatens to overwhelm the adaptive capacity of some Arctic populations and ecosystems. Part of the problem is that whether or not a particular impact is perceived as negative or positive often depends on the needs of the person in question. For example, Americans' dependence upon petroleum-based energy sources has required the United States to consider a variety of options to fulfill ever-increasing energy needs, even drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. While the federal government and a variety of private entities are engaged in research and development activities intended to provide alternative energy in order to decrease our dependence upon petroleum, such efforts will not address the current level of acute need and may not come in time to save the refuge. Whilst drilling in the refuge might provide a temporary supply of petroleum, it will not resolve long-term energy needs. Given the country's current political embroilment in conflicts in the Middle East, as well as the lack of other viable sources of petroleum, advocates view drilling in a refuge, purported to be the single largest reserve of petroleum in the United States, as a necessary measure to secure and protect the interests of the economy. However, opening the Arctic refuge, federally protected land, would likely cause severe environmental problems that would persist long after the oil in the region dries up. In fact, opponents of drilling have suggested that despite the large reserves believed to be in the refuge, the extraction of petroleum in this region will not meet the country's energy needs for more than a few years, perhaps a decade at most, and that the costs of environmental devastation caused by the drilling are not worth such a meagre supply of oil. I oppose the initiatives that have been proposed to open the refuge for drilling for oil. Although I recognise and respect that the refuge was established with the proviso that its future oil potential will always be kept on the back burner, the fact that the oil reserves there would hardly meet our national needs seems justification enough to avoid drilling there and by extension to avoid doing harm to the natural environment of the refuge. Each individual needs to begin considering how his or her personal habits can be used for the greater good, and based on improved awareness, each individual needs to make better decisions that are not only in his or her self-interest, but in the interest of the physical and natural environment. Short-term gains cannot justify long-term devastation, and the kinds of environmental threats posed to the Arctic refuge, if drilling occurs there, may very well be irreparable and irrevocable. Jonathan Brown, Bassfield Hall. Should be a bloody news report.
Like, if you were supposed to be informative